Hello guys, welcome back to our anime moments. Today is explanation of upcoming episode Throne of Seal based on novel. Guys, please like the video and subscribe to my channel. So let's start. Long Haochen extended his right hand, and Sima Xian, and Yu, Linshin, Wang Yuan and Chen Ying are placed theirs above his, one after another. Kia looked a bit hesitant, but still placed her tender hand above Chen Ying's in the end. Long Haochen then added his hand on top of hers. Then he suddenly gave out another loud shout, "We have won!" The pain he had these days seemed to have all been vented out, and gripping Kia's hand, he let the feelings that had been constrained in him burst out at once. In front of his comrades, Long Haochen always showed his serious self, so this may be the first time he showed such an impassioned side. Only now did the others present beside him realize that this young knight that had been pulling them forward had still yet to reach his 20s. The exuberant mood didn't last for too long, and after a temporary stir of emotions, Long Haochen returned to his usual calm and composed self. In a deep voice, he said, "Everyone, let's rest and regroup by the entrance of the cave, before going to explore it. After this, we should leave this place as fast as possible. We don't know whether the other demon gods will show some reaction from the destruction of one of their 72 pillars. This place is definitely not suited for us to stay." Everyone nodded at these words, returning to the cave to gather. The one who needed the most rest was Long Haochen, who sat down and focused on his cultivation, surrounded by the others, who were all resting on their own. Although the battle that just happened was short, everyone was mentally exhausted to different extent. Now that they could relax and let their guard down a bit, exhaustion immediately washed over them. Perhaps this exhaustion was piling up ever since the day they entered the demon territory. The 4 holy guards were standing outside the cavern, calmly gazing afar. At this moment, due to the descent of the goddess of light and the destruction of the demon god pillar, the air in the swamps of gloom seemed been cleaned and have some fresh air. At least as far as the eye could see, the misty poisonous fog dispersed, and in this scope, the air even carried some the fresh taste of sunlight. The swamps of gloom returned to their calm, and although this land of death wasn't so rich in breath of life, the aura of death once reeking was at least concealed by all the mud. The power of great nature was just that great and terrifying. Be it humans or demons, all living beings only seemed to be part of the food chain. Long Haochen didn't rest for too long, and after roughly half an hour his eyes were already open. "Sima, guard the entrance along with the 9th, 10th and 12th holy guards. If anything happens, have the 10th holy guard enter to inform us. The others, follow me." Standing up once again, Long Haochen immediately gave these orders. The reason for having Sima Xian stay was simple: the after effects from the purple godly thunder still had yet to disappear. And if something happens inside the cave, he will have difficulty to respond. Sima Xian nodded, then gripping his gigantic ball of light, he sat on vines near the entrance of the cave. The ice specialist 11th Holy Guard then appeared and accompanied Long Haochen's group inside the cave. The reason to take the 11th Holy Guard along was simple, first for his knowledge and experience, and then because a lot of his abilities were control-oriented. Long Haochen was the vanguard, with Han Yu and Wang Yuan on his 2 sides. Linshin, Chen Ying, and the 11th Holy Guards were in the middle, and finally, Kia was in the rear. Although danger didn't have high odds to appear on the rear, Kia still remained a close-quarters fighter no matter what one would say. Given that her control over her abilities was growing with time, with her on the rear, Long Haochen would also be able to relax. The greenish-black vines lingered continuously, stretching without end. But to everyone's astonishment, these vines seemed to be issuing a mild light. For this reason, while coming down, the cave wasn't dark. After entering the cave, Long Haochen didn't feel any existence of threat. However, the battle against the Source Gate King serving him more than enough of a warning. No matter what the situation was, he stayed extremely vigilant. The battle against the Devil Snake Demon God and the Forest Boa King opened his horizons even further. In battle, strength was very important, but scheming also played an important part. For this reason, although the cordiality he felt from the cave kept getting stronger, Long Haochen didn't become careless. While spreading out his senses, every step he took was extremely careful and minute, and deliberately increased the distance separating him to his comrades behind. McDowell was already put down by Chen Ying, running in the front. Though, he wasn't as careful as Long Haochen, and advanced with his eyes twinkling, swinging his plump legs forward. Seeing him now, who would guess that this little guy would be actually able to imitate the appearance and aura of the demon god emperor? A soft light spread out in the air, and the surrounding vines gradually became colored in the same jade color as the Forest Boa King. The whole cave had this dazzling look. "McDowell, slow down a bit." Chen Ying called him out suddenly from behind. But instead, McDull suddenly accelerated, running forward swiftly. The way forward suddenly curved, forcing a left turn at the corner. Like that, all traces of McDull's figure disappeared. Long Houchen, who was standing at the front of the group, naturally an intense start. The four wings on his back spread out abruptly and traced an accurate golden arc at the arc of the curve, chasing after McDull. If the 10th Holy Guard was here, he would definitely have exclaimed in admiration from the flight control of Long Houchen. When everyone turned at the curve, they immediately stopped their steps, and the same went for Long Houchen. McDull was already grabbed in his arms, but in front of them appeared an overwhelming scene. McDull kept groaning in Long Houchen's arms, letting out sounds akin to moans, visibly excited. Long Houchen's expression looked somewhat blank, because the scene before his eyes was really too stunning. Could that so-called treasure be? At this time, the surrounding vines were already golden due to the reflection, and as soon as they took that turn, everyone immediately sunk into that golden ocean. The intense light essence was totally devoid of impurities, and a soft and gentle golden radiance assaulted their eyes, sinking inside, and giving off an inescapable cozy feeling. This feeling was really wonderful, especially for the light element wielders Long Houchen and Han Yu. Long Houchen tolerated it well enough because his own spiritual energy was originally an existence of this grade, so when bathing inside, he only felt that the thin golden mist was echoing with himself. Han Yu's senses being very sharp, he felt his internal spiritual energy boil violently, rinsing him of his impurities. Forcefully restraining himself, he still managed to stop himself from getting affected while groaning. They were already at the end of the cave where they found out that the intense light essence was an existence that Long Houchen absolutely didn't expect to see. Reaching the end of the cave, it suddenly became enormous. The owner of that dazzling golden light was unexpectedly an immense snail. The shell of this snail was over 5 meters long, and that glowing light was dispersed from that shell. Outside of its body glowed a translucent brilliance, while its inside was full of faint golden-colored specks of light. 2 long and soft horns were swaying around it, and it had a pair of pitch-black eyes. Also looking blankly at Long Houchen's group, its look especially stagnated on Long Houchen. Its shell was indeed really beautiful, forming a close to perfect round. Circles of spiral patterns were gathered horizontally on it. Neatly organized and elegant, it seemed to be an infinite surface of reflected bright light. On its center lay a protrusion. Although that was no more but a snail, Long Houchen and his comrades were all certain that it was the first time they had seen such a beautiful magical beast in their lives. Its beauty even surpassed a starlight unicorn in Long Houchen's mind, as if it was a part of light, so beautiful. What kind of magical beast could that be? Chen Yinga muttered lightly. She asked the question present in everyone's hearts, be it Long Houchen or the rest of the group, no one felt any threat from that existence. However, that large snail didn't see them that way. As if sensing Chen Yinga's amazement, it let out a swishing sound and retracted itself in its shell. The large snail turned back, and naturally, all that was left in the sight of the group was that magnificent shell. Long Houchen's both hands were raised, stopping his mates from approaching the snail. The forest boa king's treasure ended up to be a snail. That was truly quite unexpected, especially when its attribute wasn't light. In some sense, he belonged to the life attribute type, mixed with some other heterogeneous attributes. And because of living in these swamps, its body also carried poison attribute. The snail before their eyes was however of light attribute. From its nervous looks, it couldn't be a good friend of that forest boa king, much less a lover. Then, there was only one possibility. It was an enemy of the forest boa king, or rather an object of desire in his eyes. But this snail had been living well for so long. Killing the forest boa king had taken Andromalius several months, which also proved that this large snail was a magical beast of the 9th step that had no issue surviving here for several months. From this, its level of threat goes without saying. For this reason, even if this snail was of the same light element as Long Houchen, there was no way he could let the others take the risk to approach it. 11th Holy Guard, do you recognize this magical beast? Long Houchen turned. The blue flames in the eyes of the 11th Holy Guard, who just joined Long Houchen's side, starting to pulse as he pondered. Something seemed to have come to his mind, but he didn't seem so certain. Don't worry, it's okay even if it's just a guess. Long Houchen tried to encourage him. In these lands of death, they had been encountering extinct forest boars and other antique magical beasts such as saw skates. This large snail was very possibly another kind of magical beast from ancient times, but no one had any information about it, and thus didn't dare rashly approach it. The 11th Holy Guard nodded lightly, giving the reply, from its aura, that's certainly a kind of ancient magical beast. It should be a starlight divine beast, but I don't know much about them. Ninth may know a bit about it. Hearing his respectful tone towards the Ninth Holy Guard, Long Houchen seemed moved. 11th, why is it that although you are fellow Holy Guards, the three of you so respectful towards Ninth? It's as if you didn't have the same status. The 11th Holy Guard was startled, but still gave a reply to Long Houchen's interrogation. Our status is not the same. Master only had 9 Holy Guards following him for a long time, all of whom were elites from their generation, defeated in combat by Master. The 10th, 12th, and I are servants accepted by him. Compared to the 9th Holy Guard, we differ a lot, be it in strength or knowledge. Long Houchen had a flash of understanding, so things were actually like that. The 9th Holy Guard was indeed a lot stronger than the other 3 Holy Guards. At the same time, he started to become even more expectant regarding the Tower of Eternity. With the help they had from these 4 great Holy Guards, the strength of their team as a whole almost doubled. If it is possible for him to get the addition of the whole 12 Holy Guards, what kind of sight will that be? At that time, he will be bound to have reached the 9th step. If it is the same for the Holy Guards, then even average demon gods would be no issue for them. However, Long Houchen also thought back about Yi Xiaolei's words to him. That no matter what, he couldn't enter the last floor of the Tower of Eternity. Otherwise, he would get controlled by the evil degenerations of the slumbering calamity Elux. Please bring 9th Holy Guard here, so that we can see whether he knows this magical beast. Now was clearly not the time to ponder about the Tower of Eternity. Long Houchen had instead immediately called the 9th Holy Guard here, to have a look at whether he had an idea of what kind of magical beast that snail could be. Overall, the cave wasn't very deep. A little while later, the 9th Holy Guard arrived with loud steps at Long Houchen's side. But he suddenly became stiff upon seeing that large snail, and even the soul of powerhouse pulsing in his eyes seemed to have frozen. Long Houchen didn't interrupt him. Strength aside, it seemed that the other 3 Holy Guards preserved only their feelings and knowledge, with some of their battle instincts and memories. But the 9th Holy Guard seemed to have a real soul of his own. For instance, when seeing Kia, the respect in his behavior seemed even more apparent than for Long Houchen. After quite a while, the 9th Holy Guard seemed to be coming back to his normal state, murmuring, "This is a starlight divine beast, from the peaceful era. A divine snail of sun and moon." Hearing about his familiarity towards this kind of magical beast, Long Houchen's spirits rose. What kind of magical beast is a divine snail of sun and moon? At the side, Lin Xin couldn't help but ask, then, how can you be certain that this divine god pillar is part of an ultra-divine tool? The 9th Holy Guard replied, from its aura. Although its might is far beyond compare with ordinary weapons, at the time it was destroyed, it let out the aura from an ultra-divine weapon. This kind of terrifying aura is 10-folds more powerful than the Tower of Eternity. Such an existence cannot be explained unless calling it an ultra-divine tool. Long Houchen nodded lightly, as if understanding the perilous situation they were in. Divine tool, super-divine tool and ultra-divine tool. That was the first time he was hearing of this categorization for divine tools. But no matter what, there was no doubt about their existence. Wasn't the Tower of Eternity a super-divine tool, that never missed to put them in awe with its mysteries? And it was even more probable for the 72 demon god pillars to be part of an ultra-divine tool. So it was no wonder that over the past 6,000 years, no human was able to destroy one. But since things were so, how is it that Hao Yue was able to? For a moment, Long Houchen's mind seemed to be thrown in disorder. It was as if he came to a guess, but without anything to confirm or prove his thoughts. Moreover, his hypothesis wasn't complete either, and still full of gaps. The 9th Holy Guard continued, Starlight Divine Beast were for some time, also existences of same grade. And among the divine tools that are inherited from ancient times, at least 9 out of 10 among the ones that have light attribute are related to Starlight Divine Beasts. The overwhelming majority of the Starlight Divine Beasts have great battle capabilities, so killing them to gain benefits from their resources is bound to require a huge cost. And among all the Starlight Divine Beasts types, the hardest one to deal with is of an extraordinary kind. Because it doesn't have any offensive strength of itself, it cannot wound any of its enemies, and would simply flee upon exhaustion of the enemy. The Starlight Divine Snail before our eyes is this kind of Starlight Divine Beast, a formidable magical beast close to unparalleled in defense. And because it cannot attack, among Starlight Divine Beasts, it is known as a peaceful one. And you raised the question, it cannot attack. Then couldn't we capture it, and then think of a way to handle it? It should sooner or later show a gap. The 9th Holy Guard shook his head, replying, the defense of a snail of sun and moon is the reason why it is praised as an everlasting remnant. Not only blocking the overwhelming majority of the attacks, it can also negate any negative effects. In the history of the ancient times, a snail of sun and moon is said to have appeared 3 times, but there was only one time it was slain. That time, it encountered a super-divine tool specializing in attack, and wasn't able to use its peak defense from the beginning of the battle, since attacked by surprise. And that was the only time a snail of sun and moon died. And after eating the meat of that divine snail of sun and moon, that Almighty One ruled over the world for 1,000 years. That was a dragonkin, who became a gigantic divine dragon upon eating the divine snail of sun and moon. But do you know how his rule eventually ended? Linshin murmured, "Then, if I eat a piece of your meat, would I evolve?" The 9th Holy Guard instantly became ice cold. "Want to harm Master? Just die?" Linshin hastened to clarify with a smile, "I'm just asking out of curiosity, nothing more." The 9th Holy Guard shook his head. "It's only by eating Master's whole body that you would be able to inherit the blood of the Starlight Divine Beast." Kia suddenly remarked, "Let's rather call them God's chosen ones." Really, the term beast sounds so unpleasant to hear. At the time, the 9th Holy Guard, who wasn't affected by any of the others, looked at Kia. Fear started to appear in his expression, as he gave a nod while looking down. Meanwhile, Long Haochen seemed to have put his thoughts in order. "So to sum up everything you just said, there had been in the past a gigantic dragon with a super-divine tool in his possession, who managed to eat up a divine snail of sun and moon after killing it, thus becoming the sacred gigantic dragon that ruled over the continent for over 1,000 years. Then, it ended up being killed by a chosen one of the goddess of light like me, which established the foundation for the unification of the continent by the humans. Right? Then what about the third, a divine snail of sun and moon?" The 9th Holy Guard replied, "When the third time one appeared, the continent was already under human rule. The divine snail of sun and moon having found out about the surprise attack against it, no one managed to pierce its defense until it escaped. The one we are seeing today is very possibly the same one as back then. Since I never heard of the appearance of another kind of peaceful divine beast appearing." Wang Yuanyuan murmured, "Sounds like the times divine snails of sun and moon appeared announced a transitional period before a change of rule in the continent. But the only exception was the third time. Now, the timing of appearance of this divine snail of sun and moon happens to coincide with our destruction of a demon god pillar. Doesn't it signify that the demons are going to perish under our hand?" Although Wang Yuanyuan only said that, everyone had a feeling of excitement when hearing her. At least, this was a good omen. And furthermore, the 9th Holy Guard didn't seem to contradict this conclusion. The third time a divine snail of sun and moon appeared preceded the start of the war between the humans and Master. For a moment, everyone went silent, and Long Haochen immediately reacted at the 9th Holy Guard's words. "Are you saying that the holy necromancer who set up the Tower of Eternity, slumbering Calamity Elux, was one of the leaders of the necromancers who opposed humans in that calamitous war?" The soul of Powerhouse pulsing in the eyes of the 9th Holy Guard suddenly became burning hot, giving a serious reply. He was indeed their leader. From these simple words, everyone was shocked. Didn't that mean that Elux was precisely the main culprit of the calamity that befell upon humanity, the chief of all necromancers, that ruled over their group? Then, it was no wonder that the Tower of Eternity would be that formidable, so things were like that. Long Haochen's lips were pursed tightly, and the blood in his cheeks became clearly visible, clearly showing his unstable state of mind. "Master, that divine snail of sun and moon," the 9th Holy Guard reacted with eagerness. No matter in which era, the divine snail of sun and moon was an absolute treasure. But seeing his expression, Long Haochen actually looked willing to let go of it. Long Haochen replied calmly, "The forest boa king is already dead, so it doesn't have any more enemies. Maybe living in this land of death is the safest place for it. According to your words, it is, like me, a starlight divine beast. How could I harm it? All I can do is to hope that it will give humans its blessings in defeating demonkind, so that the continent recovers its shine." The matter of the Tower of Eternity had been a fatal blow to them, but more importantly, after knowing about the antecedents of this divine snail of sun and moon, his already non-existent desire to get it was reaffirmed. Not wanting to get into trouble on account for possessing a treasure, Long Haochen came to the conclusion that he did not have the ability to protect this divine snail of sun and moon. Although his cultivation wasn't low anymore, compared to true powerhouses, he was still lacking very much. As for eating this divine snail of sun and moon after killing it, that was something he didn't even give the slightest thought to. First of all, Long Haochen wouldn't harm a magical beast that is no threat to him in any way, but even if he had the intention to harm this one, he wouldn't possibly be able to put himself through that act. Without a doubt, the forest boa king racked his brain quite a lot after discovering the divine snail of sun and moon laying here, but didn't gain his desired recompense. Otherwise, he would be rather closer to the bearing of a dragon king. Seeing Long Houchen go away, his comrades followed with no hesitation. The current Long Houchen was actually at his weakest state of mind. Now was the time that he needed the help of his comrades the most. Even the greatest Scrooge that Lin Shin was, didn't give a single glance to the divine snail of sun and moon. The ninth holy guard was standing at the back. At the time he turned his head back, giving a look to the enormous divine snail of sun and moon before glancing at Long Houchen, the soul fire in his eyes started to pound suddenly. Who could be indifferent upon seeing an existence such as a divine snail of sun and moon here, voluntarily letting it go? Even his past master Elux would never have been able to do that. Thinking back about Elux, the body of the ninth holy guard started to shake, as if remembering some terrifying experience. Then, he lowered his head in sadness and followed the others outside. Actually, in this world, there is no real correct thing to do, and no absolute mistake. Even during those days, the calamity of the necromancers was just a big shame. The ones who restored humanity finally ended up framed as their greatest enemies, exterminated by their hands. Who wouldn't be sighing when hearing this? An unclouded voice suddenly resounded in the midst of the vines, making Long Houchen almost react instantly, taking out his two swords. The divine snail of sun and moon that came out of its shell at some point, had a pair of pitch-black eyes, gazing at him. His look was very gentle, and a pair of soft horns appeared above his head. Long Houchen was in shock. Were you the one who spoke? The divine snail of sun and moon nodded at Long Houchen, as if it was a human. Right, it was me. Long Houchen turned his head back, and his comrades reflexively stood in guard around him. What a surprise was it to see the divine snail of sun and moon speak in human language. Long Houchen directed an ardent look at the divine snail of sun and moon. I don't understand your words. The divine snail of sun and moon gave an enthusiastic reply. One's innate talent isn't something everlasting. Everything one gets after birth is bound to affect it somehow. The same goes for the chosen science of light. They can also get affected by the vices of the external world. Even the purest heart in the world can get infected. The God of light is the protector of the world. And I, divine snail of sun and moon, and my kin hope to restore peace in this world. It's just that until this day, we have yet to really succeeded. At this point, the divine snail of sun and moon clearly became more emotional. Long Houchen listened to him calmly, but for some reason, he unconsciously got the feeling that the words of the divine snail of sun and moon were extremely important for him to listen. The mission of us, divine snail of sun and light, is really majestic, but at the same time, our fate is tragic. The time the first divine snail of sun and moon appeared, at the same time came a sign of light, another starlight beast of that time, so-called God's chosen one by you humans. That was the gigantic divine dragon. The story of that little skeleton was quite one-sided. The reality was really more painful. The exalted God of light picked the dragon race because of the great power of dragons, and their ability of self-protection, thus making them incomparably powerful with bestowment of the physique as God's chosen one. However, our God overlooked the greediness of the dragons. Perhaps dragons don't necessarily have a tyrannical character, but their natural desire for beautiful thing is incredibly strong. As a result, my ancestor became the first target of tragedy, having been attacked by surprise after that gigantic holy dragon gained his trust, only to become food. That way, that gigantic holy dragon awakened and became a formidable gigantic divine dragon, ruling over the world for over 1,000 years. However, he had a defect in his heart. As his rule was coming to its end due to his greediness, the God of light became incomparably grieved towards his actions. As living beings kept reproducing in the continent, the humans gradually revealed their brilliance. Perhaps the humans' inner heart could be even darker than the other races, but humans had a creativity that all the other races didn't have. For this reason, our God finally chose a human to become his spokesperson. That was the second sign of light. That we were born to protect my ancestor from this time was fortunate, or at least during his early period. Accompanying that sign of light in assiduous training, he saw him become an outstanding talent that led the human armies and defeated that gigantic divine dragon, relying on his understanding of the enemy, and finally became an heroic dragon slayer by killing him. At the same time, this announced the start of the human rule over the continent, known as Glorious Era of the Continent. Then, wasn't that a perfect situation? Long Houchen couldn't help but blurt out. The tone divine snail of sun and light started to sound suddenly furious. Perfect? It was only perfect for humans. In his youth, he was indeed a perfect person. But upon getting older, at the time he started to reach the end of his life, do you know what he did? Looking helpless, Long Houchen shook his head. The divine snail of sun and moon coldly said, from who knows where, He heard a rumor that eating a starlight beast could grant immortality. Hearing those words, Long Houchen felt a chill on his back. Immediately, he started to grasp his hands fiercely. The others were also overwhelmed with shock. Although the divine snail of sun and moon didn't say it explicitly, they clearly understood the following course of events from his words. Then he betrayed his best friend, the best friend who sacrificed everything for him, all for the sake of an illusion, the possibility of immortality. From this came out the real nature of your human race. My second ancestor finally ended up unable to escape the same fate as that first ancestor, but his pain was even greater. That was because he was reduced to the state of food in the hands of his most trusted and beloved person. Then, the time I descended onto this world, as the third one of my kind, I had the memories of my both ancestors engraved in me. For this reason, I hated all of you, humans, bitterly. I didn't want, no matter what, to choose to support the human side. I had to find an even better race in this world, to unify it under a better rule. However, I have no choice but to admit that the human creativity made the continent very beautiful. If a new ruler were to be born, it would very possibly bring about a great calamity. How could I bring myself to bring that kind of outcome? I was really at a loss, and started to lose sight of the reason for my birth. If this world was so peaceful, there should be no reason for a divine snail of sun and moon to be here. But afterwards, I finally understood. The reason for my birth was very simple. After reproducing for several thousand years, even if you, humans, were powerful, beautiful, and your society, science and technology advanced remarkably, the bad human nature gradually came out, and all their dark and filthy side started coming to the surface. Not long after that, I ran into my supposed target of support, the Scion of Light of that era. But to my anger, that Scion of Light was still a human. Why did it have to be another human? Could it be that our God could only acknowledge this kind of race rooted in evil? But I had no choice, as I had my own mission. And then I finally understood the reason why my ancestor was so dead set on that Scion of Light. A human Scion of Light is an almost flawless existence. His kindness, courage, wiseness and power, almost his whole being could be seen as something perfect. I unawarely ended up attracted by him, but right as I was about to express my desire to support him with my all, something happened. He seems to have had a very intense experience and completely changed, becoming mad, incomparably mad. Then he ran, splitting ways with me. At that time, I was perplexed and didn't understand what he experienced. Even now, I still don't know. But at the time he returned, 20 years later, he had become a terrifying existence. Something even a god would fear. That was the one you were speaking about, the holy necromancer, slumbering calamity Elux. At this point, Long Houchen couldn't help but let out a gasp, unconsciously looking at the ninth holy guard. At this moment, the ninth holy guard became extremely stirred. Little skeleton, if you know the reason why Elux became that way at that time, could you tell me? That would clear up the doubt that had remained in my heart all this time. The divine snail of sun and moon asked the ninth holy guard. The ninth holy guard appeared at a loss, before shaking his head. I don't know either. At the time I encountered Master, he was already known as the slumbering calamity Elux, the most powerful necromancer of all time. So you were really the divine snail of sun and moon of that time. I still remember that you had a conversation with Master, but disappeared after that. Could it be that Master didn't tell you back then? The divine snail of sun and moon lightly shook his head. That's right. After his return, I discussed once with him, hoping to understand and to persuade him. But the Elux from that time had already changed completely, becoming totally hysterical and unreasonable. He seemed only preoccupied with strength, but I could see that his soul was contaminated by something, deceiving and filling him with wrath. I don't know why he did that, but I can be certain that something happened to his body. As the spokesman of order and peace that I am, he invited me to accompany him in changing the world, cleaning all the human filth. But how could I commit such disastrous acts with him? In the end, none of us managed to convince him, and all I could do was to leave forever, in order to avoid encountering the same ending as my ancestors. Since then, I haven't met him ever again. At this point, the divine snail of sun and moon stared at Long Houchen's face with a firm look. For this reason, the Scion of Light you are, shouldn't come to a hasty verdict. It's true that Elux was the origin of the terrible catastrophe that fell upon humans, but I am certain that some extreme pain was filling his heart, causing even his nature to change in such way. In reality, the kindness that is so symbolic of Scions of Light still remained in the depths of his heart. Otherwise, he wouldn't have let me go, and wouldn't have harmed a single civilian in the terrible war that followed later. All he did was to defeat the human armies and slaughter many of the nobles. I hope to understand him, to understand the story behind his acts. I don't know what happened to Elux, but I dare say that it must have been a very significant event in the blink of an eye, so many years passed already. Everything that was here before disappeared, and Elux isn't here anymore. I know about the descent of the demons as well. Perhaps, it could be to punish you humans for your greediness and evil nature that they appeared. I also sensed your appearance. The sign of light is pure, but the purer an existence is, the more it is intolerant to little imperfections. If there was a quality I could hope to give you, that would be tolerance. No matter when, and no matter what experience you will encounter, if you can remain magnanimous and tolerant in all circumstances, perhaps will you see the world differently. Hearing the words of the snail of sun and moon, Longhouchen nodded earnestly, engraving all the words of this ancestor that lived in fear for close to 10,000 years in his mind. He couldn't deny the evil nature of humans, and this was the first time he heard these stories about the former scions of light. The words of the snail rang a loud alarm bell in his heart. Thank you for your warning, Senior. In my current state, I have no way to protect you, but I will engrave inside of me everything you told me. I will maybe come to look for you in the future, and I hope that at that time, I will be able to stand in front of you with a clear conscience. Longhouchen's words were earnest, and the comrades by his side seemed to be all staring at him. Everyone had accepted to obey him willingly, and could attest that at least since they met up, Longhouchen could absolutely have a clear conscience regarding everything he did. However, the divine snail of sun and moon shook its head to these words, letting out a sigh. Unfortunately, I cannot see you. Can you guess what I realized over these past thousands years regarding my kin? I finally understood what my two ancestors did wrong. But in this life, even if I attempt a new try, I won't commit the same mistake. You cannot see me? Longhouchen gave a shocked look to the divine snail of sun and moon. He seemed unable to understand what this self-proclaimed beseecher of the peace and the order meant by that. The divine snail of sun and moon revealed an expression close to a smile. Can you guess what I meant? At a loss, Longhouchen shook his head. The divine snail of sun and moon continued, the defect of my two ancestors was their spirit of sacrifice. They had forgotten that belonging to our race of divine snail of sun and moon is originally a crime. Our very existence and our flesh is a law that even a scion of light cannot resist. But in the same way, as spokespersons of the God of Light, we don't have the obligation to assist the scion of light wholeheartedly. So I came to a decision long ago. Now that you finally appeared before my eyes, this long life of mine should finally be close to its end. I cannot see what will happen later, but only the will of heaven. I only hope that this sacrifice of mine won't come to naught. Senior, you, full of shock, Longhouchen unconsciously stamped the ground. Don't attempt to stop me. No one can control me. Even God wouldn't be able to. Youngster, although I don't know your name, what moved me was the earlier display of your kindness. You still possess the essence of your purity as a scion of light. You don't have to feel pain because of my death. I have already been living in this world for far too long. My life energy is already close to extinct, and I am already near my last breath right now. To me, having been able to live long enough to encounter you is a perfect ending. I also hope that I will be the very last divine snail of sun and moon to descend in this world. My name is Longhouchen. Longhouchen's both fists were gripped tightly. He could clearly perceive that the life energy of the nearby divine snail of sun and moon was circulating at an extreme speed. Just like a dam, his circulation of energy increased in intensity, as if his body had turned into a water ball long ago. But the next instant, the external part of this water ball was breached in an irreparable way. Dots of sparkling golden light drifted through the air from the divine snail of sun and moon, filling it with brilliant gold and slightly shivering. Every soft fluctuation produced this way would cause the air to shake. A rich and soft light essence propagated, cleaning the hearts of all the people present. The divine snail of sun and moon declared in a soft voice, Longhouchen, keep my previous words in your mind. The tolerance I spoke about is not only to be directed at others, but also at yourself. You may be the scion of light, but it doesn't make you a perfect being. Everyone can make mistakes, but you don't have to let them affect your heart, and stay tolerant toward yourself. I have to go. My body will be protecting you as an unyielding shield. I hope that my departure today will help to change your concepts of morality and conscience. No matter what you may encounter in the future, you mustn't go past your limits. If one day, you manage to meet the slumbering calamity Elux, please ask him about the motives behind his acts on my behalf. With that shadow in his heart, his soul cannot possibly have found peace yet, even after so much time passed. The voice of divine snail of sun and moon appeared weaker and weaker until disappearing completely. And its body started getting transparent. Brilliant light drifted in the air like golden crystals, before slowly falling onto that carapace. The soft golden light kept drawing circles and emitting impressive light waves. Tears started dripping from Long Houchen's face, as his expression changed indescribably. With his right hand placed on his chest, thumps could be heard resounding from his heart, performing a dignified night salute in front of the gradually disappearing divine snail of sun and moon. Not only him but the others also performed dignified salutes of their respective vocations, following with the eyes the departure of that dignified divine beast aged thousands of years. Along with specks of golden light, its huge shell suddenly started whirling. At every spin, its color darkened bit after bit, and its volume shrank. As it went on at a speed that one could still follow at the naked eye, a short while later, it shrunk into a yellow ball of light, floating in the air heading straight toward Long Houchen. On his left hand that Long Houchen unconsciously lifted, that orange ball of light looked about as big as an eye, falling directly on his left hand. The glorious holy armor didn't seem to be any obstruction in front of it, and Long Houchen just felt a warm feeling on his left hand, before that warmth spread out onto his whole body, including even his very soul. Permeated by this warm feeling, Long Houchen felt his heart becoming all the more transparent, as all the constrained feelings in his heart, including the remorse he had after learning about Elux's origins, disappeared without exception. That kind of pure heart, like what a newborn would feel, unaffected by any impurity. His spiritual energy didn't increase at all, but from his first contact with that moist feeling, Long Houchen came to understand how important the gift he just received from the divine snail of sun and moon was. It didn't only help him by sharing his memories and warnings, but most of all, used his last bits of vital force to cleanse his soul. The others didn't have direct impact, but in their eyes, the changes on Long Houchen were however very clear. As the yellow light fused with him, Long Houchen's whole body appeared transparent. Be it in his expression, aura, or spiritual energy, he appeared to have gained a kind of pure and holy touch. In particular, the expression in Long Houchen's eyes seemed to have gotten back to how it looked at the time of their first encounter. Looking at his left hand, Long Houchen went silent for a moment. Suddenly, he then took 2 steps forward, slowly kneeling onto the ground, before bowing in the direction where the divine snail of sun and moon disappeared. The divine snail of sun and moon didn't only teach him about tolerance, but also about sacrifice, defense of sun and moon, borrowing strength from the owner's heart. Guided by the light, blessed by the gods. Bringing a new dawn, the divine snail shall act as shield. Once again standing up, Long Houchen slowly lifted his left hand. An orange luster suddenly shone on it, and immediately, an entirely pure and limpid shield of 1 meter diameter appeared on his left hand. Its shape was exactly the same as that of the shell of the divine snail of sun and moon. The ring of light forming its shape condensed little by little, gaining in power and softness, containing boundless and lofty power. It carried the name Divine Snail Shield of Sun and Moon. That golden shield glinted of an orange brilliance which could only signify one thing. That it was a piece of epic tier equipment. Any existing weapons would, only upon reaching the epic tier, acquire a special luster of orange color, symbol of the epic tier. And another change would follow upon reaching the level of divine tool, the disappearance of that luster. Even within the Knight Temple, only 12 of the pure gold foundation armors reached that level. And the 12 Saint Knights wielding them are second only to the divine knights in position. The Saint Knight Han Qian was formerly one of these 12 Saint Knights, but after becoming old, he retired from the front lines, and thus handed the pure gold foundation armor of epic tier back in exchange for an ordinary pure gold foundation armor. The divine snail shield of sun and moon Long Houchen gained at this very moment was exactly a powerful piece of epic equipment as well, boasting the legendary defense of the divine snail of sun and moon. From this, one might well imagine the boost this would give to a guardian knight such as Long Houchen. This was already beyond the reach from a lucky encounter and closer to mad luck. But at this very moment, Long Houchen only had his heavy duty and deep emotions in his mind. We are going. Once again giving a serious look at the direction of the place where the divine snail of sun and moon disappeared, Long Houchen led his comrades towards the exit. The rewards they gained this time from the swamps of gloom were a lot more valuable than they imagined, comparable even to what they originally had gained back in the illusory paradise. It was just that the gains from this time weren't as direct, but in some sense, they could be said to be even more important. Forest boars, saw skates, devil snakes, the devil snake demon god and the forest boa king, as well as the fallen demon god pillar and the divine snail shield of sun and moon they obtained. If all this could be converted into something valuable and given a few years to be assimilated, it could be actually enough to make them reach the emperor grade as a demon hunt squad. But until this day a demon hunt squad of less than 30 years of age never appeared. Without a doubt, the dual core they had with the pair of gods chosen one formed by Long Houchen and Kia played an extremely important role, but just as importantly, luck stood by their side. After coming out from the cave, everyone looked at Long Houchen, waiting for him to direct them. If they took the same path as before, they would undoubtedly once again face great difficulties, so the best way was obviously to leave from the poisonous swamps by flight. This would not only optimize their speed to the maximum, but also save them a lot of time, for their most important priority was to leave the swamps at Bloom as soon as possible. But unfortunately, given Hao Yue's massive consumption, he wouldn't be able to carry everyone and fly. Thus Long Houchen sank into a short time of hesitation. Boss, how about leaving by flight? Isn't that just a bit of poison? We'll just have to make a path and that will be it. Sima Xian proposed. Long Houchen looked at Lin Xin, querying, is your spiritual energy enough? Lin Xin nodded, hinting that he had no problem. Long Houchen declared, okay, then I will be in charge of clearing up a way in a bit. Preserve your battle formation, everyone, we will be flying straight ahead, and go to high altitude right after coming out of the poison fog. Then we will keep charging straight. Han Yu, Sima, Yuan, 12th and 10th, the 5 of you will form an external circle in the formation. I will be flying at the very front, while Yinga, Kia, 9th, 11th and Lin Xin will remain in the center. The mags in the center of the formation are to have some spell kept in preparation. Yinga, have McDull get ready to release the imposing might of a devil dragon. In case we encounter some obstacle in our way, no matter what enemy it is, everyone is to attack at full strength, before getting away from it, and rush out as fast as possible. Understood? This video will end here. Thank you for watching.